All right, everybody. Hello and welcome back to our final episode of the 306 Fantasy Football Podcast for the 2022 NFL season. We are recording episode number 81. We're going to be going over a little bit of the Super Bowl recap and kind of what to expect from the podcast here in the upcoming weeks. So before we get started into that here, we'll say hello to the fellas, and then we'll maybe get a little bit of a recap of what's been going on here the last little while. But Armand, well, I know other than maybe the Super Bowl party there, what's the last little bit been what you been up to, keeping you busy?
Oh, the basketball season officially done, so getting a little bit more free time on my hands now. Well, maybe I can make some dynasty moves or something. Uh, I know for some people this might sound like a small fries. For other people, it might sound like a big deal. But today I did reps of 315, so 3 plates squats today. So felt pretty good. Did 4x4 and I feel beastly.
Attaboy, Armin. Off season, eh? Talking
Yeah.
about off season reps, off season dynasty trade, just never a dull moment for this guy. Always working. Zach, how about yourself there? Been ready for the break, I guess? One more day for us, or what's been keeping you going?
Yeah, that's about it. Just living for the week off at this point.
Oh man, it's been a grind. We had our pack finale here for basketball, so it was much the same as Armin. Basketball season's coming to a grind. 7/8 finished today, and then we got our 6/7s that'll wrap up the week following after the break. So looking forward to some little bit of time off here this week. Actually, myself, I was talking with my wife. We might end up going to Edmonton for a stretch, hit up IKEA. We went to IKEA during our honeymoon, and well, that's an awesome place right there. I don't know if you've ever been to IKEA before, but that store is pretty freaking cool, and you can get like a plate of meatballs for $1. So I mean, just go there for
Oh
the
yeah.
meatballs, I think. But we'll hit the recap button here. Maybe just a little bit of what's been going on with the charity event stuff. We're still kind of finishing up some loose ends here, so we should have the grand total. We'll put it up on our social media on how we ended up doing there like last year. But we're doing pretty darn good. We did really well during the charity events, and so did our participants. Our charity bracket challenge winner with a KC win. Tim Stewart locked that one up with a near perfect bracket, getting 13 of 14 points. He only had one incorrect game. Lexi Carrier, shout out to my wife there, gave me a licking on the bracket challenge. She got two incorrect. She had a really good bracket as well. And Nolan Zur, our friend from the NC Squared podcast, he locked up third. He got three incorrect, so a total of 11 of 14 points. So really good finish for those three. Super Bowl prop bets. This one was a fun one just because of the ups and downs in the wild game of Super Bowl, which we'll get to in a little bit here. But Robbie Gates, back to his winning ways, finished first with 19 correct guesses on the prop bets. I finished second with 18 total points. I really thought, I was hoping that it was the orange Gatorade. It would have solidified me in the first, but purple Gatorade, who's going to guess that one at plus 1,000 there? But I finished second, and then we had a tie for third between Marcus McKen and Riley Dalshog, and Marcus had the tiebreaker over that one. So I don't know if you're familiar with those two, but good buddies of mine and from the same friend group as Saskatoon boys. So I'm sure there's a good little ribbing there that'll happen between those two of them tying and Marcus winning that one. Then our last one too we had was the new one this year we did, which was the Super Bowl Super Squares. And if you didn't know how that works, you could buy a square, and if the quarter ends on your score, you win the prize. First quarter prize winner was Calvin Schneider. Second quarter winner was Tiffany Stewart. That Stewart family really cleaned up this year. Third quarter was Matt Hogan, and our grand prize winner was Matt Robbins. So that was a new one we did this year, just kind of on a whim, and it ended up working out pretty well for us. So something we might continue on in our next season as well, coming to the playoff and NFL Super Bowl time, whatever. So it was a lot of fun. Zach, I guess this is your first Super Bowl watch party. Armin and I were there last year, and you were there this year. Attendance was down a little bit, but I think wasn't too much. It was just we had a little bit of a bigger venue this year. We separated it and spread it out quite a bit more. Where last year we kind of cramped in the one corner. But what was your thoughts of your first experience of the Super Bowl watch party from the podcast and Rock Chart events?
It was a good time. I really appreciated how there were probably 8 or 9 screens available. So regardless of where I was sitting or standing, I could easily catch a view of the game. So That was really nice, and the food and the drinks were nice too. Those nachos were super popular. I bet my wife and I and Armin and his wife, we probably had like 6 or 7 plates between the four of us throughout the game. So they're nice to have.
At the before the thing starts every year, and last year they did it too, where they come and bring out some of the samplers of the food and ask us how what we think, more or less, whatever. We got those nachos, and I was like, "Oh boy, these are freaking good. These are gonna be real popular." And that poor guy in the back just humming nachos out that window. Like I bet you 100 plates of nachos like easily because they were going fast and furious.
Oh yeah, man. Like that topped the food from last year. I think we sold the like double, if not triple the amount of food this time.
Which last year's food was really good too, but there's just like a wide variety of different options. Where this year was, you had pizza or you had nachos. But man, like those nachos, there's something to be said though about going to watch a football game and crushing nachos. Like your go-to is either nachos or wings. And I don't know about you guys, I do like wings, but for some reason, if I'm going to watch football, I'm just crushing nachos. I'm also a big salsa guy too, so maybe that plays into it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had a good turnout. Like I said, it was pretty close to what we had last year, and obviously all the people doing the same thing we wanted to do: watch a really good football game, and we were treated to an unbelievable football game. We'll get to that in a little bit, but everybody wanted to be there for the same reason: watch a good football game and contribute to a good cause. And at the end of the day, that's what we were able to do. So we're super thankful to everybody that was able to make it, be in attendance. Like Zach said, have drinks, have food, and enjoy a football game. So we'll get to the football game here shortly. We're going to do our last 22 fresh quick question, the 2022 season, and then we'll kind of dive into a little bit of the recap. But this one is a fun one, kind of thinking into next season. I know the season's over, but like Armin said, dynasty trades are coming up here, so we're taking the hats off here pretty quick into the off season. But what is something that you would really like to remember from this year that you're going to utilize come draft season next year? So maybe it's a major takeaway from the season, or it's a strategy that was successful this year you want to implement next year. Players to avoid, new quarterbacks and new offenses, something along those lines. So we'll start this one with Zach. What's something that you're going to take away from this season that you really don't want to forget moving into the 2023 fantasy season?
So I don't know if this question answers I don't know if this answer answers your question completely or not, but I was thinking rostering 2 quarterbacks isn't a bad idea. That goes for a 1 quarterback league. And if you're in a 2 quarterback league, certainly you want to roster 3 quarterbacks. This is 2 seasons in a row where I thought that my one dynasty roster was good enough to win it all. But because of Lamar Jackson and his injuries, I have been left going into the playoffs. Last year, it was Jared Goff. This year, it was Brock Purdy, who I peeled off the waiver wire right at the end of the season. So in both of those cases, having a bona fide starter as a QB2 may not have won me the championship, but it certainly would have put me in a better position. And then in Armin's redraft league this year, I think I was probably one of the unquestioned better teams in the league all season. And right as the playoff push was coming into sight, Jalen Hurts went down, and I was forced to tinker with a few lineups with Gardner Minshew and Jared Goff again. And I was in a few dicey matchups there. But luckily Hurts came back before the finale and I was able to play him. But had that not happened, I would have been starting Minshew or Goff in a final in a league where I thought I was probably the best team all season, and would have really hurt to have lost that championship by a few points if one of those 2 quarterbacks played poorly. So next season, I am thinking about drafting 2 quarterbacks and keeping one on the bench all season, because I don't want to be in that position again where I have a strong team, but it kind of falls apart at the end because of a missing piece at quarterback.
That's that's a strategy that I've kind of thought about. And to be honest, even this last season, I think I did, or maybe it was 2 seasons ago. I can't remember how it all worked out. Where you draft that quarterback in, say, the 6th, 7th, 8th round or whatever. Whoever you end up, it's usually not the top 3 type drafted quarterback, but somewhere in the range of maybe Joe Burrow last year, where he was in, probably drafted QB 9, 10 in that ballpark. But I know there's lots of people that took a late round shot on Trey Lance. That wouldn't have been this past year, even higher draft capital, obviously, been 2 years ago. But you take that shot on a high upside guy this year. If you would have taken that shot on like a Justin Fields, you draft your QB 10 off the board, and then you take a late round flyer on Justin Fields. You hold on to Justin Fields, and all of a sudden, boom, you got a quarterback 1 for the stretch of 5 weeks just with that rushing platform. So you can take that high upside gamble late, and so it kind of plays right into your strategy there, Zach. We're talking about 2 QBs isn't the worst idea. Like, imagine if you had Jalen Hurts, you picked him up in the 6th round, and then all of a sudden you had Justin Fields with your 15th round or 14th round pick, and Jalen Hurts goes down, and Justin Fields plops right back in there with almost a similar scoring system as what Jalen Hurts would have got you. So I think honestly, it's not a bad idea, especially if you're swinging for the fences. Like you said, you ended up with last season. This season, Jared Goff was a little more upside, but last season Jared Goff was a flop for majority of the year. But that's not the type of guy. And correct me if I'm wrong here for me. I'm putting words in your mouth there, Zach. But that light, additional quarterback, you don't want that, just in case quarterback that you could probably get off a waiver wire anyways. I think maybe you're speaking to more of like an upside guy that you would draft to that second quarterback, or am I maybe speaking out of context here?
No, you hit the nail on the head there. I wouldn't want to be rostering a waiver wire caliber quarterback. In the redraft league that I won, I was able to take Goff and Minshew off the waiver wire, and I think I went like 3 weeks in a row where I started a different quarterback. Like it would have been Minshew, Goff, Minshew, I think. So I'm talking about having like one of those top 5 or 6 quarterbacks probably, and then having another startable quarterback on my bench.
Yeah, not like a Jimmy Garoppolo or like a Baker Mayfield. Those are guys that you could easily prop up off the waiver wire. Somebody with a little bit more of an upside. Armin, what's something that you don't want to forget moving into the 2023 season?
I always get into this every year of taking safe bets throughout the draft, and I think this year I'm finally going to try and go high upside over the safe bet. A team full of safe bets don't win you the championship very often, whereas the high upside guys are. It's just those safe bets. You might get like that 10 points a game kind of thing, but high upside guys, you want those guys that have the potential to blow up for 30 points in any given week. And those safe bets, they're drafted low for a reason. It's because they're getting you just so many points a week. So why not on those last few picks, like your bench guys or your flex spot, draft the high upside guys and then just try and mix and match throughout the year and pick the best matchups, or hopefully one of them turns from a high upside guy into a consistent every week threat.
Yeah, I love this one, Armand. With those late round picks, hell, even in those the 10 to 12 rounds, I guess maybe a guy could consider those the later rounds, but there's a mentality among drafters that it's like, oh, he's a safe PPR type running back, so I'm gonna draft him. Where you could swing for the fences and get somebody with a little more upside. And there is something to be said that having a couple of those guys that's the safety blanket's a worst case scenario, or maybe a guy that's a receiving back, but then if the RB1 gets hurt, then that guy can step into that RB1 position, where then that does have that upside, right? But there's no reason to draft a Boston Scott. What do you think Boston Scott's going to do? He's RB3 on the team. He's probably going to get a touchdown here and there. Then you're going to kick yourself that you didn't start him when he didn't get when he got a touchdown, and then you play him the next week and you get you 2.6 points. Like nobody needs Boston Scott on your roster. You know what I mean? So I like that piece of advice there, especially for drafters next year. Mine, this is a different one because I've always been kind of in the idea that the late round tight ends and then playing the tight end market and trying to cycle through and trying to find something that hits. But the last couple of years, it's few and far between to try and hit those late round tight ends. And it's made it become apparently clear to me, especially on the teams that I've been a champion in, that that tight end position matters. And having a premier high end tight end really, really matters. And not having one hinders your roster significantly. And when you miss, like for example, if you took a Kittle and then panicked and traded him early, or you took a Kyle Pitts, those are high end draft picks. And when you miss on those tight ends, that's like missing 2 total picks altogether. Because not only did you give up that 3rd round pick where you could have got a really good wide receiver, but then you also got a terrible tight end that you can't feel like you have to put in your roster. And Kyle Pitts gets you another 2.2 points and you lose the week because your tight end position flops. Like if you're going to take a high end tight end, you need to hit or you are in trouble. So I am going to probably have more Travis Kelce this upcoming season than I'm proud to admit, or a tight end of that equivalence. Because if you took a tight end, Hawkinson panned out this year in that tight end 5 range. Kittle was a bust for half the year until probably the close to the playoff stretch. Kittle or Pitts was a total bust. He won our bust of the year, and he was drafted tight end 4 in that range. And Andrews had a down season, a lot to do with the Lamar Jackson injury, but he was drafted tight end 1 or tight end 2, depending on your drafting, your league there. But that tight end, like Travis Kelce, finished as the wide receiver 4 on the season as a tight end. So be able to put him in your lineup and then have another spot where you can put another, wide receiver that can get you 10, 12, 13, 14 points, that just significantly puts you ahead of the rest. So myself personally next year, it's easy to say because when you look at Travis Kelce on that first, second round turn and you say, oh man, I could also get a premier running back instead. But then at the end of the day, you could also end up with a tight end that gets you 1 point. Where if you look at so many championship rosters, what are the odds they had, Kittle that they ended up picking up off a trade bait or something like that, or they had a Kelce that was able to carry them throughout the entire season on that onesie position. Same kind of goes into a little bit what Zach mentioned, where you need to have a good quarterback. You can take the late round quarterback because they can get you 18 points, but then how many quarterbacks can get you 40? Hell, 66 points or whatever Hurts got in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, there's not many that can do that. And that same thing goes back to Travis Kelce. There's not many tight ends that can do what Travis Kelce does. So I will be going very heavily on those high end tight ends. And I'm going to be avoiding the tight end 4, 5, 6, and so on. If I don't get one of those top couple, I'm just throwing the position out the window and hoping for the best in that, tight end 12, 13, 14, whatever kind of range. So it's a little risky, especially with the cost price, but what they can do for your team, I think it's very, very valuable. Moving into insiders and headliners here. I'm not even gonna use the drop because we got one here. Zach, I think what you mentioned to when we were talking about this before the Super Bowl when we were sitting at Rock Trout, I think that goes into a lot of consideration here with what we're going to talk about with Derek Carr. We lots of the reports and fantasy profiles and Twitter and everything was talking about pretty much locked Derek Carr is going to end up with New Orleans Saints. So we're kind of waiting to see what the trade would be, what the compensation would be. And then all of a sudden he comes out and says, no, I'm not going to waive my no trade clause. You're going to cut me. And we're kind of sitting there thinking, this is a little interesting. And Zach, maybe you want to share, because I think now it's a lot of what you shared on Sunday is pointing in the direction of what's most likely going to happen here.
Sure. Yeah, I got this idea from the Draft Dudes podcast, and the idea basically is the Raiders had granted Carr the opportunity to visit with and meet with potential suitors, and one of those was the Saints, and I believe he had either 2 visits or 2 days consecutively with the Saints. And the idea is during those visits, they kind of agreed on the parameters of a deal that would suit Carr and the Saints. But instead of Carr saying, yeah, I'll accept the trade to the Saints, and his new team, the Saints, having to send presumably draft capital over to the Raiders, Derek Carr, being in control because of the no trade clause, simply said, I don't want to go to the Saints. So it would not be surprising in the least bit for me if in the coming days the Saints all of a sudden come to terms with Derek Carr, and they're able to get the player that they wanted without having to give any draft capital to Carr's former team, the Raiders. Because why would Carr want to go to a new team and weaken them in any way, while also helping the team that is sending him out the door?
Especially a very winnable division.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
that seems to be kind of what Derek Carr is like. He seems to be a team first guy, so he wants to be team first for the team he's going to, right? And kind of the other way you can look at it, say up your bum to the Raiders for giving up on him.
I could just imagine him walking out the door backwards, just two birds in the air, being like, "Thanks for letting me visit them, but suck on this one." Like, oh, it's so good. I just can imagine, because not that Derek Carr is a top end quarterback, but he's given his heart and soul to that organization, and played through injuries, and done a lot for that team. And unfortunately, hasn't won the franchise, the big games or nothing like that. But a guy that cared about the organization, and them to say, yeah, see you later, like don't even report to the facilities, we're moving on. It's sucks for him, but hopefully he gets a fresh start wherever he lands up. Or I think we're all kind of guessing that's going to be New Orleans, and like we talked about, a very, very winnable division, to be said as well too. Okay, we've talked enough about a little bit of intro stuff here. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. Chiefs, Eagles. This one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the third highest scoring Super Bowl in modern history. And it was a fun one. It smashed the over. Touchdowns for you, touchdowns for me, touchdowns for everyone was this Super Bowl. And Mahomes ends up winning the MVP. The game was unbelievable. It was very entertaining, especially if you're somebody that was in a boat. I think at least I'll share this. I don't know if anybody else is sharing the same sentiment, where if both teams can't lose, then let's at least make it a fun one, because I didn't really want to see either team win, and I just wanted a good football game, and that's that's definitely what we got. So Mahomes wins the MVP. I guess if there's any takeaways from the game here, but the big one that's left the game after. And it was like, oh, the refs ruined the game. The refs ruined the game. And I don't know if I totally agree with that sentiment. I thought that was a well officiated game. I thought they did a really good job. But obviously the elephant in the room is the holding or not holding call. And if you ask an Eagles fan, obviously they think it's a BS call. You ask a KC fan, they think it was a no brainer hold. And I don't know about you guys. I think it was a good call. It just sucks that it was that call in that moment. If that call happened in the first quarter, nobody's thinking about it or moving on. It is what it is. But because it extended the drive, I don't know. What my thought is, he hit Juju on that crossing route about 8 times in that fourth quarter, and now it's a touchdown. That was going to be a touchdown if he didn't get held up after 5 yards. That's going to be a touchdown. That's my thought. I mean, I think it's a hold. I'm also a unbiased opinion here, but I'm curious on what you guys think here. We'll start with Zach, and we'll get Armin's opinion right after. Zach, do you agree? Do you think that's a hold, or do you think it was a little cheeky with the game on the line?
So I do agree that all the replays that I've seen, and I've seen all sorts of replays on Twitter where they go frame by frame, etc. But I do think it was a penalty. Was it an egregious penalty? I don't believe so. The curious or the frustrating thing is that was like the only defensive holding penalty called all game. So conceivably, they're letting the DBs play a little more handsy up to that point. And I saw an interesting stat on Twitter the other day, and I forget who created it, but it said that the referee, Carl Sheffers, he and his crew hadn't called a defensive holding penalty since December 24th, since Christmas Eve multiple games.
A lot of overlooks.
Yeah. So for them to potentially swallow their whistle for 3 or 4 games in that area, and then to not call any similar penalties for 58 minutes and 37 seconds of the Super Bowl, and then to call it at like the biggest stage, it does, I think, in my mind at least, take a little bit of the excitement out of that game, because if they don't call that, most likely the Chiefs kick a field goal, and then we're left with about 90 seconds for Hurts and the Eagles offense to attempt to march the field and kick a game-tying field goal or score a game-winning touchdown, instead of throwing, one of the worst Hail Marys I've seen.
I'm glad that got mentioned. That was brutal. Just an absolute noodle arm trying to throw that one about 40 yards upfield.
Like, if you want to do that, they should have drafted Mac Jones, okay? Like,
looked like me and Armin playing catch before River Riders. just throwing up quackers right up the
and
middle.
like the worst part was it was a rope. Like, there was no art to that. It was just a laser.
A silver bullet about 5 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
I think before we get Armin's take here too, you made a good point where, was it egregious? No. Was it a flag? Yes. Like, was it a hold? Yes. But if you think about, if there was a non-call there, do we get the same outroar and the same frustrations from Chiefs fans if they lose that game? I just don't see it, because it was a hold, but like, is that one we could overlook? It's hard to say. Like, like now we're splitting straws, and if you see the ref sees a jersey, a handful of jersey, then he's going to throw the flag. But it wasn't egregious, and I think that was the best part you said there, Zach. And for me, I don't care either way. Like, I didn't, obviously, I don't know. Armin, what do you think?
I got a lot of things on this one. Yeah, like, it wasn't egregious. It, like, you watch that play and it wasn't a big enough hold to impact the play, I don't think. Like, I honestly don't think it changes the outcome of that play. Even though Juju was targeted by Mahomes and went over his head, Juju's not catching that ball. It wasn't a big, huge tug on him. Like, it didn't look like it slowed down Juju. And then also the other side of it too, with, like, kind of building on what Zach said about the refs not calling a defensive holding call for how many games, is that, like, you guys have all been part of sports. You've coached, you've played, that every game you gotta feel out what the refs are calling, figure out what you can get away with, where the lines are, right?
Outline.
And that line was made all game long, and then it changed on the most important play of the game pretty well, right? And that is where the frustrating part would be as the player, because, like, yes, I did hold him. That is a penalty. Like, if you're calling it by the rule book, yes, but refs can let things go, right? And it was kind of a change. It's that consistency, right? Like, I always leave a basketball tournament, if the refs are consistent all game long, I say that was a well-refed game. They controlled the game and they called it consistent. It was the same things were getting called every time, and there was never anything where it was like, well, you weren't calling that. Yes, it's a foul, but you weren't calling that. Like, it feels consistent, and that's just, it was well-refed until that one call, and that one call was just didn't follow the trend that ref crew had set up for the boys.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I don't know, maybe you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, and unfortunately that's the life of an official for a lot of games, where if you overlook the call, one team's happy, one's pissed, and vice versa. 6 one way, half a dozen the other. But
it's why I hate officiating, and I respect anyone who does put on those stripes, because, man, it's tough and you get abused so hard. So, like, I refuse to ref because I don't want to take that abuse, and I try not to abuse officials ever, because I know, like, it's tough.
the most respected comment right there from Armin Schalberg. I got one more takeaway here, unless you guys got something else you want to add here, but I got one more. I think honestly, there is no player in that entire game that I respect more than Jerick McKinnon. And I actually ended up sharing this little blurb on Facebook. It was somebody else had posted it, and it had the picture of him taking the knee on the 1 yard line. And like, if you think about yourself when you were playing sports growing up, whether it was hockey or it was football, basketball, whatever sport you played, you think about yourself and you think about winning the big game, or you think about playing at the pinnacle of your career, or you think about if you're a hockey player, you want to play in the Stanley Cup, play in the NHL, you want to win a Stanley Cup, or if you're a football player, you want to play in the Grey Cup or the Super Bowl, and you want to win those big games. And those memories of play that you can tell after, and how many players that have gotten there, obviously a very short list. And then in that short list, the amount of players that have got a touchdown or an interception or something like that, those big plays, those defining moments in your career and even your life, and to be able to share those moments and those stories with your kids, your grandkids, your friends. And Jerick McKinnon has had one of the biggest roller coaster careers a running back could have, from injuries to trades to cuts to all these different, the roller coaster ups and downs, the highs and lows. And to have a door open walk-in touchdown at the age of, 31, 32 years old, to in the Super Bowl, to ice and possibly win the Super Bowl. He takes a knee on the 1 yard line to ice the clock, kick a game-winning field goal with 8 seconds left, and then presumably, finish the game. Like, that is one of the most unselfish team-like plays I've ever seen on the biggest stage. And somehow Casey's got to be giving this guy a bonus or something, because to have the self-discipline to do that is something that I don't know I have. And I would consider myself a team player by most accounts. But to have that memory for the rest of my life, that I won the Super Bowl with a game-winning touchdown, to just have that right in front of you, take one more step and you take a knee instead for the betterment of your team. Now that's a team player, and that's a guy that deserves money or bonus or whatever. That was one other thing that I wanted to mention from that takeaway, because we talk about Jerick McKinnon, the fantasy player, all the time. He was a guy that I thought could have been the playoff hero for us in our drafts. I thought he could have been the waiver wire stud. He's a guy on my team that helped me win some big weeks down the stretch. But to do that for his team was quite an accomplishment, quite the moment of if you could define teamwork in one picture, or you can define discipline in one picture, that's the picture that you should show. But I don't know. You guys have anything else you guys want to take away from the game?
Well, his dedication on that too, when he's sliding in, you could see his foot was even about to break the plane, and he's like, I'm not even going to let a single part of my body. You see his foot pulling back, making sure that he's not crossing the plane at all by any way.
Wild. There's I don't think I could do it. I don't think, but anyway.
I agree. I don't know if I could do it either. That is a team guy right there, and that took a lot of discipline.
There's a moment that you may never get again. But I mean, you guaranteed a win. You guaranteed a Super Bowl. So I guess, give a little give and take. Wrapping things up here, we got our weekly recap, and then just a little talk about what we have moving forward here for the podcast and the remaining weeks and obviously the off season. But studs of the week here. Let me start with Armand. This was a pretty obvious one here. Let's hear yours.
All right, my stud of the week is Jalen Hurts with 3 rushing touchdowns and 1 passing touchdown, and over 300 yards passing. I think he had 70 yards rushing as well.
Yeah, and a rushing 2-point conversion.
Yeah, and a rushing 2-point conversion. The Eagles didn't lose the game because of him. In fact, we went into this game thinking that it was the Chiefs were going to be led by Patrick Mahomes, and that was the reason they were going to win. And the Eagles weren't. It wasn't on the back. Supposed to be on the back of Hurts for them to win the game. That it had to be on the back of the team, and it ended up being the opposite. Both teams had a shot at winning this game, and the Chiefs, it was their team effort. I think honestly, Patrick Mahomes, he gutted it out and everything. but it was a team effort to win that game. Like everybody stepped up. Whereas the Eagles, it was Jalen Hurts, and that was it. And I honestly think, and this might be a hot take, but if he doesn't fumble that ball, he wins MVP of the Super Bowl, even though he's the losing QB, because he put up better stats than Mahomes
by a lot.
Yeah, by a lot. And if they win, like it's solely because of him. Like Mahomes was relying on special teams and defense to win him that game, and they both came up with huge plays. So yeah, Jalen Hurts was my stud of the week, and honestly, like even with that fumble in my mind, he was the MVP. He was the best player, and it kind of shows here when you guys look at your guys' studs of the week too on that.
Yeah, like you could add Devonta Smith, you could add AJ Brown. They both had good games, but that's because of Jalen Hurts. I would be lying if I didn't say it crossed my mind that Jalen Hurts might win the MVP even though he lost. Like his stat line was like it was like a Madden stat line. Like it was unbelievable, and he was a losing quarterback. If you had any doubts about what Jalen Hurts can do, he showed up in a big way, and one, like you said, Armin, one minor blemish which ended up putting points on the board the other way, but he was by far the best player on the field that game. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and man, that 3-yard sneak that like the Chiefs know is coming, like that was insane. Like they line up in their goal line or their short yardage like they do every time, but from 3 yards out, and they make that, like that was insane. That determination by Hurts and Kelsey on that.
Yeah, well, the guy squats 6 bills, like he can push a pile.
Yeah,
it's unreal. You kind of foreshadowed a little bit there, Armand, on where my style of the week is going to go, and I went KC DST because exactly what you said. We thought the Eagles had the superior defense, the better front, the all around better special teams, better defense. But like you said, it was KC that stepped up in a big way. They had a huge punt return and a timely punt return to put points up on the board and essentially win the game for them. At least take the lead. The defense played phenomenal. They only had 1 sack, but they played as well as you possibly could to giving up that much points to a rushing quarterback. And there was a lot of question marks on that team, a lot of injuries, a lot of players banged up. Is their secondary going to be able to do what they do? They played a lot of zone, but you can't play a lot of zone against that offense. So I think they played as best as they possibly could, and those special teams did what they needed to do. They had a defensive touchdown, as close to a special teams punt return as you could possibly get. I think went down on the 3. So yeah, they did what they needed to do. Like you said, it wasn't Mahomes that won that game. It was a well-rounded finish. But
and how about Kadarius Toney going from spare parts on the Giants to winning the Super Bowl and being a big part of that victory?
Yeah, that's kind of what you mean. Like you look at his actual fantasy line, I think he had 1 reception for 6 yards, but his contributions were so much bigger than that 1 for 6. Zach, you're one here. I love this one. We'll wrap up the week here.
I saw it and I loved it too, man. Oh boy.
I had to go a little bit left field because when I came here to fill out the docket, the 2 obvious choices, in my mind at least, were picked by you guys. So I did think about maybe going to Devonta Smith, but decided to go a little odd here. And I said Andy Ried. Andy Ried put on a bit of a coaching clinic in the second half. Going into halftime, the Eagles were up 10 on the Chiefs, but in the second half, up until the Chiefs started taking the knees at the end of the game to bleed the clock, they had gained 219 yards of offense out of a possible 220 yards in the second half. So meaning on each possession, they scored up until that last run by McKinnon where he stopped on the 1 yard line. So Reed, the OC, Behemini, and Mahomes had that offense humming along, and it was a bit of a masterclass, I think, on offensive play calling. All three of Mahomes, his touchdowns came from inside the red zone. The deepest one being the 18-yard touchdown to Kelsey. The other two touchdowns were designed so perfectly that both Kadarius Toney for 5 yards was wide open, and the 4-yard pass to Sky Moore was equally wide open. That I think any of the three of us, if we were able to get open, would have been able to score had we caught the ball. So
nobody was gonna bite on my smash out there, Zach.
no, I definitely agree with that. But I think had we been able to run the route and been that open, we would have been able to finish the play.
It was unbelievable. They ran that jet and that motion all night just to set up those two plays. And like the Eagles secondary is one of the best, especially their safety. Like that secondary on that team is one of the best in the league, and they bet on that motion back to back. It like you said, a mastery was the best way to describe it. It was unbelievable to be that open against that defense in that big of a game.
Oh man, like if they ran that play and it works the same way in like the regular field, they're still scoring. Like Toney could have ran to the bus before someone got to him.
To the house. And Rick, what was I read a stat and it just escaped me. Like the amount of opportunities won to loss, like his overall record in the playoffs, and it's like one of the most outstanding playoff records in coaching history. I can't remember the exact numbers. I might have to try and pull it up here, but what a guy, and you know, a guy that doesn't get enough credit, I think, because the start of his career was a little bit rocky to say the least, but like he's in the realm with me like of the coaching greats, like, though, especially in the offensive minds and the creativity. Like, you think of the success that Bill Belichick's had, and he'll go down as arguably the best coach in NFL history, if not the best. He'll be a close second. But like Andy Reid's got to be in that conversation for one of the best coaches in, you know, especially in recent memory for what he's done with. I think he's won since he's been with Kansas City. I think he's won the division every single year, been in the playoffs obviously every single year, and now what has it been to the Super Bowl 3 of the last 4 seasons and won 2 of them. Like it's what a run that team's been on, and obviously led by Andy Reid.
And the great thing is, like, I saw a joke saying they're the new Patriots, they're the enemy, but I don't think I can root against Andy Reid. Like, I can root against other guys on the Chiefs, but Andy Reid, I love that man. Like, he's
his quote at the end of the game: "I'm going to get waffles and a cheeseburger." I don't know you guys like. Yeah, I like cheeseburgers too, so I like you, Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Oh, it's unreal. Wrapping this one up here, we got our wager wheel, and we were going to do this one live, and just with handing out the prizes at the end there, it turned into a bit of a chaos, and then most people left following the Super Bowl. So I kind of had I'm going to have a little fun with this one, and if you didn't know already, I lost. Armin smoked me. It wasn't even like mid Super Bowl, I looked over at Armin and I said, yeah, I'm in trouble. And I think it went downhill even quicker from there. But what
Jalen Hurts as the MVP for that one.
Yeah. And like, he had double the points Mahomes did. Like I was in trouble. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put it on social media, and we're gonna give you, the listeners at home, an opportunity to share a a punishment of some sort, and we'll take those collections, our favorites of those. We'll put them in the wheel. We'll put it up on social media. You'll see it, and then obviously I'll do the punishment that fits the crime. But a couple of things that we're gonna put some feelers out there and some guidelines that obviously. Keep it legal. I think that's the number one here. Got to keep it legal. Keep it something that we can share on social media. You know, that's appropriate. We can make it funny, but it's got to be something that's appropriate.
Nothing that'll make Jordan lose his job.
Basically, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. I'll do a lot. It's fun for the pod. It's fun for the brand. I'll have a lot of fun with it. I'll eat my shame, but let's make it appropriate and make it something that we can at least share out to the public for for, the people that follow us on social media and whatnot. So that'll be out here. I'll probably post it. If not tonight, I'll post it tomorrow. I'll leave it up for a couple days. We'll get it going, and maybe it's something I can do during the break, and maybe hopefully I'm not sitting at McDonald's for 24 hours, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what creative ideas the fan base can get, and we'll go forward with that. Wrapping up the season here, what our expectations are. So we do this every year. We take a little bit of a break, just because it's a grind. It's a busy schedule. Everybody's busy. We have real lives. We have wives. We have extra career. We have jobs. We have all those things that grind us out in the day throughout the week, and then we make sure that we spend some time here to talk to you guys at home and do something that we really enjoy. But it takes a toll. So we take a little bit of time at the end of the year just to hit the reset button and get caught up on real life stuff. And then during the off season, we record every 2 weeks, just because there's not a lot going on throughout the season, especially in the off season. We save it all the content for those 2 week stints. We do something fun, usually lots of game show type stints or interviews or something along those lines. And then we the next 2 weeks we share it again on the Wednesday. So what it's going to look like here, the free agency begins on the 14th, right, Zach? The March 14th free agency opens back up. So we're going to drop an episode on March 9th leading up to that free agency. And I think we're going to be doing a free agency frenzy, kind of like Zach had set up for us last year, which was very game show like. And we had a lot of fun with that one too. So just wanted to say before we wrap this up, everybody can kind of share a final remark here, last 2 cents, I guess. But just I want to say thank you to everybody that's made year 2 a huge success for us. Obviously, we went through a lot of kinks last year trying to figure out year 1 and how this is all going to work out. And year 2, we once again having a lot of fun doing what we do. Got to raise a lot of money for charity, which is kind of the whole backing of what we do here between fantasy football and our contributions to Saskatchewan, helping Saskatchewan. But big thank you to everybody at home listening. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be doing this. We'd just be talking over beers on a couch somewhere, and instead we're going to put it on a podcast and have some fun doing it. So I want to say thank you to everybody at home for listening and making this possible. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. But Armin, you got anything to wrap up here? Any final remarks for the 2022 season?
Hey, thanks everyone for coming out and supporting us at the Super Bowl party. Hopefully next year we can make it an even bigger success, and come out and listen to us during the off season here. It's a lot of fun, and even if you don't play Dynasty, it might help you out in your redraft. And come listen to us, have fun, and reach out to us. We like to talk about fantasy all the time. So
hey, it's just fun times to talk about football, eh? Zach, anything to mention before we wrap the season up?
You guys said it all. But I will add, for me personally, the off-season discussions are probably my preferred topic of conversation. So I'm actually really looking forward to the next several months of episodes.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I was talking about it actually at our Super Bowl party. The season is set, and there's only so much we can talk about in season, because we're trying to help you out at home win your weeks, win your championships, and there's only so much we can do within that hour parameter we try and set for ourselves. But in the off season, we have a lot more free reign, and we can have a lot of fun with it. And those game shows, those are my favorites. And we're talking about we're doing what we enjoy, we're doing what we love, but we're having a lot of fun doing it. And we've had a lot of good feedback at home from people that really enjoyed that format too. So wrapping it up here, big thanks to you guys, obviously Armin and Zach, helping make this weekly thing a success, and Lucas, I know he's not on right now, but doing his wagers throughout the year and hopefully winning some people at home some money. But I guess with all things considered, and I guess kind of that'll do it for the 2022 fantasy season, as well as our episode 81. So thank you very much for listening at home, and I guess we'll see you in 3 weeks. Take everybody. And, we'll talk soon.
One more thing. Big thanks to Robbie Gates on helping set up the Super Bowl party as well.
That man is an MVP. 2 years in a row, that guy has helped us out making everything a success.
Honorary podcast host.
We have to get him on one of these times. I'm sure he would definitely jump all over that. Anyways, take care, everybody. Talk soon, and thanks for listening.